There was another point earlier in the game too, where the Eagles sent a blitz, and Daniel Jones beat the blitz on that play. So the blitzes are hit or miss. But when you're playing a quarterback who's not considered an elite quarterback, you attack him all day long.
Welcome back, live post-game show. We are fueled by Stateside Vodka, 15% off the very popular Stateside Vodka Soda. That's 15% off the very popular Stateside Vodka Soda. If you just simply go to statesidevodka.com and make sure you use the promo code you guys see in the scroll with JAKIB. Welcome back, live post-game show. Marc Farzetta Devan Kaney, Derrick Gunn with you. I know a lot of people were looking, especially in the middle portions of this game, at Jonathan Gannon and what he was doing defensively, what that scheme was, as you started to see Daniel Jones march the football down the field, Saquon Barkley break one. They had a big screen in this game as well. Overall, I mean, I saw a couple of different plays, and this shouldn't be that hard, where Daniel Jones' brain melted. You just showed six guys at the line of scrimmage on a couple of different occasions in this game and only sent three, and Daniel Jones just stood there like he was waiting for the boogeyman to come out of the closet and was almost disappointed when he didn't see that ugly face rear its head. So for me, I thought Jonathan Gannon actually did an okay job against this Giants defense, but ultimately it just makes me look back at the offense, which is what we've talked about through the vast majority of the show so far. But defensively speaking, Gunner, no problem with what Gannon did today.
It was okay, but the one thing the trend I'm starting to see is they're not getting quarterbacks on the ground. I mean, the stats show Daniel Jones was sacked one time, but they're getting pressure on quarterbacks. But when they played Trevor Siemian, when they played Teddy Bridgewater, the pressure made the quarterback feel uncomfortable. I don't remember any particular time when Daniel Jones really looked uncomfortable in the pocket. They got a little pressure on him, and obviously he has the capability of stepping up and stepping out and taking off at any given moment. But they're not generating enough sacks. They're not getting enough hits on quarterbacks to alter the mindset of a quarterback in a lot of ways. And while the defense is playing better, now these guys up front, if you're going to bring your corners down now and play them, in bump and run coverage with wide receivers, that means you can play more games in the boxes with your front seven. And while you've been getting more blitzes on, you've got to get quarterbacks down on the ground. You got to get some shots on them. You got to take some of the wind out of their sail. They didn't do that in this game.
Mm-hmm. And I also think I agree with everything you said, D-Gun, in terms of getting to the quarterback and sacks. And something that I know, Derek Barnett is a name that comes up all the time with penalties being killer, but Steven Nelson's penalty that brought the Giants to the 1 yard line and then they ultimately scored. I think it's little things like that do still bug me. And I know week in, week out, we always kind of debate whether Jonathan Gannon's the guy. I haven't been his biggest fan. I know our friend John McMullen really likes him. But I think today, it's mostly on the offense, but it was just meh. It wasn't wow, that was an outstanding defensive game plan against the Giants, which
exactly.
I think we need to remember who the opponent was.
Yeah, I'm not saying he did a great job or good job, like a K job by Jonathan Gannon standards throughout this year. But for me, I would like to see more blitzing. I know I pointed out the time he showed blitz, but didn't. There was one instance where it looked like Alex Singleton was being sent and then ended up being an RPO play where they were able to stop Saquon Barkley in the backfield for about a 7-yard loss. Yeah, I still want to see more aggression here, but defensively speaking, they did what they were supposed to do against a Giants team. They weren't supposed to shut them out. I wasn't expecting to do that. I don't think this defense is good enough to do that. But when it comes to the aggression, I would still like to see Jonathan Gannon do that. If you're going to be waiting for Daniel Jones to play, they had, this is the perfect play to talk about. Schlereth made an allusion again today to Daniel Jones being able to do what you have seen in many different occasions from Jalen Hurts. Oh, Daniel Jones will be able to beat you on the run too, like Jalen Hurts will do for the Eagles. Taste your own medicine for the Eagles. I didn't get that vibe at all because Daniel Jones is way too slow. And as we saw last year in a Giants game, Daniel Jones, if he gets any room to run, he'll trip over his own 2 feet and not be able to take it the rest of the way home anyway. But when it comes to the way the Giants were playing offensively, they did everything that you expected them to do. But they're still going to have a couple of plays where they weren't going to be able, or they were going to be able to beat you. The fact that you couldn't force him into a turnover, like it feels like every defense has been able to do against this Giants offense, is really where you start to look at yourselves and go, all right, well, we didn't do a good enough job making him uncomfortable and forcing that mistake. Because again, if you continue to scare these guys, you will force them into make a mistake. Daniel Jones has proved that throughout his career. That's why talking to people in New York media over the last week, leading up to this game, that was the one thing that everybody said to a man, which was if you force Daniel Jones out of the pocket and make him throw the football enough, he will make a mistake. That is why he is still looked at with great skepticism in New York as whether or not he's the franchise guy going forward. The fact that he didn't really see that throughout this game, yeah, that is a worrisome thing.
You know, here you are 10, 11 games into a season, and Daniel Jones' numbers coming into this game was 9 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. Oof. He will give you an opportunity as a defense to make a play on the ball. You know, even his bad throws were not throws where the Eagles had opportunities to make plays. You have to generate your own opportunities sometimes. They didn't get enough pressure on them, plain and simple. You know, you've got to get quarterbacks down. You know, getting pressure on some quarterbacks works. Like a Trevor Siemian knows he's playing for a backup job in the National Football League. He's never going to be considered a long-term starter by anybody's imagination. So, you know, when he makes a mistake, if that was because of the offensive coordinator he had in Jason Garrett. But here's a guy who's under enormous amount of pressure playing in the largest media market in the United States, and he really hasn't excelled much for whatever the case may be. So once you get a few hits on him, you know, you got him thinking now, looking over his shoulder. But he didn't have to because the Eagles didn't do enough to put enough pressure on him to make him hurry throws in a lot of cases, to make a lot of indecisive moments in this case. So, you know, give the Giants kudos, number one, for playing a very conservative game with him, but also for the Eagles not being able to rattle him the way they should have. You know, you were talking about last year, Mark, and you're right. The turf monster got him on one long run he should have scored on. But if you remember the other game, remember the other game, he actually took 130+ yards in the house on his team. So for whatever reason, when Daniel Jones plays the Eagles, he plays better football. I have no idea why.
I mean,
why did it take so long for Boston Scott? Yeah. Well, why did it take so long for Boston Scott? Like, again, that first quarter for me, offensively speaking, was a little weird. But Boston Scott, same type of thing. When he plays the Giants in the other scenario, he seems to do really well. He's got more yards per carry, more yards per reception than he does against any other team that he's played more than once throughout his career. Right. And it was weird. Both those guys for a while were stepping up, and the other team couldn't counter it. And then finally you saw Boston Scott just unfortunately cough it up on their second to last possession.
Boston Scott has had some good numbers against the Giants. Boston Scott was having a good game today. And unfortunately, he spit the ball up at the most inopportune time. You know what? It's just one of those things. Boston Scott usually doesn't fumble the football. Boston Scott is usually a sure-handed guy. Everything you could possibly ask for worked the Giants' way today. You know, it was like the perfect storm for the Giants. You know, and unfortunately, it was like a Bermuda Triangle for the Eagles they just couldn't get out of.
I'm seeing a lot of comments, and this is something that we can potentially talk about later in the show, because Howie Roseman, I feel in recent weeks, since the Eagles have been doing well, and I know we talked about Jalen Reagor and the Eagles draft order, I've seen a lot of praise for Howie Roseman, and I'm curious to see if everyone's opinions on that are going to change, or if that's changed your guys. But I don't know what your opinions on Howie's job so far has been, especially this season. But someone said that the coaching was just way too conservative. And Deegan, I know you touched on that. I know Nick Sirianni mentioned his conservative play calling led to the Saints making it an almost close game last week. But do you guys think Jonathan Gannon is calling a conservative game?
I think today he did. I mean, one of my favorite plays that he called today was a fake blitz. So it wasn't even the fact that he actually called a blitz. It was a fake blitz that he completely psyched Daniel Jones out and made him that was the only time that I saw Daniel Jones uncomfortable, because he rushed the throw. His brain, like I said, melted when he saw 6 guys at the line of scrimmage. They didn't know what was coming. They dropped back 3. They sent 3. And then and then he just rolled out of the pocket and threw the ball away because he didn't know what to do. His brain melted when he saw 6 guys at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, but if you just saw that, if you just saw that, if you're Jonathan Gannon, how are you not thinking, let me do that a little bit more, but let me actually get somebody in the backfield that actually hit him and make him think, Gunner, as you like to say, hey, make him think that I'm coming on the next play. That way every play is uncomfortable.
There was another point earlier in the game, too, where the Eagles sent a blitz and Daniel Jones beat the blitz on that play. So the blitzes are hit or miss. But when you're playing a quarterback who's not considered an elite quarterback, you attack him all day long. Now, I understand the Giants have not been using Kenny Golladay. I mean, the man had, 1-2 targets in that Monday night loss. Their top two receivers, Sterling Shepard and Kadarius Toney, were out with injuries today. But you still had Kenny Golladay. You still had Evan Ingram. So you had enough targets, but you got corners that can play the man up. You still got Darius Slayton, who in the past who had been an Eagles killer, but you've got corners that can play the man up. You have to attack, and I keep equating it to go back a few weeks and look at what Miami did against a very dangerous and dynamic Lamar Jackson. I'm sitting there watching this game on a Thursday night, and I'm thinking, okay, Brian Flores is going to mix it up just a little bit. They attacked Lamar Jackson all night long. And even when the Ravens got close, they did not back off in a blitz. It's one of the few times I've actually seen Lamar Jackson thoroughly confused and frustrated because the Dolphins were tattooing his behind every chance they got, and he was hurrying his throws. He was being indecisive with the ball. He wasn't running up and down the field on that Dolphins defense that night. And you could have used a similar game plan today, Jonathan Gannon. You attack Daniel Jones. I know he's had a measure of success against you in the past, but he's not like he's running 4.240s, okay? You could have attacked him and hit him all day long and trusted your corners on an island with their receivers. You didn't do it. You let them off the hook.
Was that Denny Green? Was that Denny Green right there?
They are who we thought they were. And you let them off the hook.
Yeah, another thing I was reminded of today was the you're never as good as you think you are, you're never as bad as you think you are. Right, and that's a famous, Andy Reid would say that all the time. And as I'm watching this game, especially in the first three quarters, I'm just thinking, there was going to be one game, and we talked about this last week when we talked about, okay, you got 6 games left. How are they going to round out the rest of the season?
Right.
And the thing for me was, you knew there was a sleeping, oh God, no pun intended. You knew there was a sleeping giant in here somewhere. You knew there was a game that you were going to trip over. I sure as heck didn't think it was going to be this game against the Giants, even albeit with a change in offensive coordinator and who was going to be calling plays and all that. I didn't think this was going to be the game. But, man, this one, I actually thought it was going to be one against Washington. But this game here, it was a perfect example of you're never as good as you think you are, win 3 or 4. You're never as bad as you think you are. But this game was definitely you're not as good as you think you are type of game. Mm-hmm. And for me, this is also a game that you look at and just say you were snake bitten. And that's not to excuse anything that the Eagles did. It's not to erase the fact that you had 3 interceptions with a guy that's trying to be your franchise guy here for the next 10 to 15 years. It's not about 2 huge drops by Jalen Reagor that could have been potentially game-winning touchdowns for you in this offense. It's not Nick Sirianni trying to prove himself as a head coach that could be here for the next 10 years as well.
Right.
It's just to say that when you look at a game, they could do nothing right. And when you look at those games, one of the things you're supposed to try to avoid is, making sure that you're always prepared. And I don't know if the word preparation comes into play here. I don't know if it was poor preparation going into this one. I know Nick Sirianni said following last week's win that, you know what, the heck with it, we're going to stick with what works. See you Wednesday.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea to keep on doing that for 3 or 4 weeks in a row. So to me, this Eagles team looked very lethargic starting things out. Your quarterback couldn't get into a good rhythm. The run game is something that I think the Eagles can do in their sleep. And when they did that, that worked. But it didn't look like this was going to be the type of game that you were only going to be able to win by running the football. Right. They needed those big plays to be converted. The like I mentioned earlier, the 3rd interception to the game to Reagor down the sideline, where you have Jalen Hurts throw the ball with his back foot on the 2-yard line. That ball came down about 60 yards downfield. It needed to be about 75 if that was going to be a completion or come out earlier, which I think would have been the better decision by Jalen Hurts. But for me, when you're watching all that play out, it was just play after play of momentum gained, momentum lost into a brick wall. You would hit that brick wall every single time. And when you have that many turnovers, Gunnar, as you've mentioned, that brick wall is there waiting for you on every single play.
Yeah, and unfortunately, these things happen in football. It's like any given Sunday, dog day afternoon, whatever terminology you want to use, it just happens. Unfortunately, it happened to the Eagles in this particular game. I'm looking at the comments here, and if I'm Jalen Reagor, I might hire a bodyguard service for the rest of the week. Because people, between the comments on our show here and on social media, if I'm Jalen Reagor, I'm hiring somebody to buy groceries for me this week. I'm hiring my own private Uber service to get back and forth to where I need to go. And I'm not going anywhere without a bodyguard this particular week because fans are losing their minds. It's unbelievable. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
And like we talk about momentum, and I think it is important to know, like, the Giants this was a redemption game for them, right? They lost Jason Garrett, everyone kind of counted them out. And I do know, even though, Nick Sirianni, maybe people think he's too light on them, especially after a win. Apparently he played Nick Saban's speech to basically telling them to not get too confident, to not get too cocky going into this game. And I don't know if that was the reasoning. I don't think there's one specific reasoning to this absolutely horrific performance that we saw today. But I do think that's a factor. I think the Eagles definitely I think they counted the Giants out. And I hope maybe we can use this as a lesson, maybe rebound from this. Hopefully it's not back to how we kind of started the season. But I'm going to try to stay optimistic here because the comments are really wild right now.
Oh, look,
They're funny, though. Keep them coming.
Hey, Devin, why don't you read some of the why don't you read some of the more colorful comments on camera?
Oh, you want me to read? Okay. Well, okay.
Remember
first,
it's a family show.
It's a family show. I will read some of the comments, but also go vote on my poll on Twitter because we'll talk about it later on who you put this loss on more. Some of the comments on that are also quite colorful. Okay. Let's see. It's a passing league. The Birds can't win without receivers. This game is not on the coaches. It's Jalen's fault. Jalen lost the game. A lot of hate for Jalen. A lot of hate for both Jalen's, actually. Jalen Hurts, Jalen Reagor. They blew a big opportunity. The offense killed the Eagles today. Hurts was bad. Scott had a bad fumble. Reagor had no business being drafted in the first round. Wow, guys, it's bleak out here. These are pretty bad. I'm afraid to keep reading because there's very colorful language in here.
Look, that's why it's like it's tough sometimes. It's like a landmine. It's like a minefield. Excuse me, when you're going through the comments because especially when you're reading live and it's like, I can't say that.
Yeah, wait.
But I will say,
what
I will say this particular game, when you do have 3 interceptions, and as I said last week, when trying to evaluate how Jalen Hurts was against that defense and how he was trying to beat double coverage on a lot of his receivers and only rushing 3 or 4 at the line of scrimmage and trying to wait and see how the defense played out. This is a game where you really can't look at anybody else more than you look at the quarterback. And at the end of this game, look, the quarterback stepped up and he made great throws, and no one's taking that away from Jalen Hurts. But for the first 58 minutes of this game, it was a struggle for Jalen Hurts. And there's really the worst play of the game, in my opinion, worse than even the touchdown, because you're going to have drops. What you can't do as a quarterback is have mental errors, especially when you're in the red zone, especially when it's only 3-0. And instead of throwing the ball out of bounds, you throw an interception before halftime and you throw the ball away. And then you don't even go into the halftime with a tie game. Like that to me is just a bad play, bad form by Jalen Hurts. And as much as Nick Sirianni could have called plays to try to get Devontae Smith into the game or Dallas Goedert into the game and try to get those playmakers into it, one thing you can't do is give the football to the other team and give them opportunities to score points on your defense. And yes, again, I'll say it again. Jalen Reagor had 2 opportunities to catch the ball, win the game for the Eagles. Maybe you're not in that spot if you played a much more balanced game throughout this, throughout the entire, throughout the first 3 quarters of this game.
Well, we always talk about the mental strength of Jalen Hurts and that being one of his best assets as a player and a leader on the team. And I do still think that we rarely see him rattled. I think maybe one of the only other games we saw him as rattled as he looked today was against Dallas. And that was it seems to be divisional opponents. Maybe it's the pressure. I don't know. But today he seemed rattled. He did not look like he was together, especially when things got pretty bleak. I believe it was in the 3rd quarter. He did pull it together by the 4th, which is promising, looking for a silver lining here. Because I do think I don't think we should jump to, oh, we need a new quarterback now. I still think we need to give Jalen Hurts time to develop. But I do think we didn't see that mental strength, the mentally on steroids aspect of Jalen Hurts that we love so much and we always discuss on this show today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll put it like this. I'll look for the mental steroids next week. You know what I'm saying? I'll look to see how he bounces back because, hey, look, if you want to talk about mental steroids that we always joke about on the show, I'll say this. The last 2 minutes of this game, I saw him. I saw him put the ball right there to try to win it, but throughout this game, he had made some mistakes. And we talked about a couple other plays, and I forget the team it was against. It might have been the Chiefs, where Jalen Hurts had a similar type of play where he's rolling out of bounds, and instead of throwing the ball where it's at least in play, he then threw the ball away. And that's a mental mistake by a quarterback. That's inexperience, right? That's inexperience. But we are nearing the end of Jalen Hurts' proverbial rookie season. When we talk about what? Now he's started 16 games at the NFL level. If we go to this year's schedule, we'll give him, I guess, one more, 17 games. But we're nearing the end of that proverbial rookie year of 16 to 17 starts for Jalen Hurts. So I'd like to see some of those mental errors work its way out of his game, and we'll see how he bounces back against the Jets. But for me, it's basically going to come down to this. Continue to make those throws like he did in the final 2 minutes of this game, final 2 minutes, 30 seconds of this game, and good things will continue to happen to this Eagles offense because the run game is there. I feel like this Eagles team can run the ball in their sleep, as I said earlier. The minute that pass game starts to click for this offense is the minute this offense can start to be dangerous. I think it's going to take more than just Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. I think it's going to take a couple other pieces that just aren't here in Philadelphia yet because I don't think that's Greg Ward. I don't think that's Jalen Reagor, and I don't think that's J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, despite another first down catch today. Good for him. I think it's going to take a lot more pieces for this offense to really get going again. Also, one thing we haven't mentioned, is Miles Sanders 100% healthy? Because he was limping around on those sidelines a lot. Right. So I look forward to hearing from John McMullen when he joins us a little bit later in the show to let us know what that post-game reaction is as well.
Yeah, for sure. And someone in the comments actually mentioned, and I saw this a ton, that we were missing Jordan Howard. And Jordan Howard's amazing, but I don't know if his lack of presence on the field is to blame for this loss today. I mean, I'm sure we would have benefited from having him. And certainly if Miles Sanders is injured, but I'm not going to say that Jordan Howard being out is why the Eagles lost today.
Yeah, no, same here.
The running game would have been that much more potent with a Jalen Howard, but they didn't need a Jalen Howard in this game to win this game. It was just what they did to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot in this game. The turnovers, you can't say enough about the turnovers. The defensive front, not getting enough pressure on Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones didn't have great numbers, but he made the necessary throws when he had to in certain situations. So the onus is on the Eagles coaching staff, the players themselves. People are going to say Jalen Reagor, but there were other players that had opportunities as well to make plays. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen for this team. We talked about, this team is in a position to run the table, and they were. When you looked at the way the Eagles were playing and you look at what they had left on their schedule and taking into consideration Dallas, who is now reeling, might not have needed that game, the last game of the season, because the division would have been wrapped up or their seeding would have been defined by then. This was a team that had a chance to run the table, but you also had to take into considerations. You had to proceed with caution. You knew this team is capable of having a flat game somewhere, as is every team in the National Football League. Unfortunately, they picked this particular game. Can you imagine if they play like this against the Jets of all teams next week? Can you imagine in a span of 8 days playing inferior football against two of the weak sisters in the National Football League, what this fan base is going to be like?
The New York Sisters? Yeah. Rabid. The fan base here would be rabid. The mob is fickle, brother, as they like to say. When we come back a little bit later in the show, we're going to be joined by John McMullen from Lincoln Financial Field. Do want to tell you right now, you're listening and watching live post-game show on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, as well as 6abc.com. And we are powered by Ocean Casino Resort. Go for the live shows. Go for the win. We'll react and give you Jalen Hurts' reaction to his performance in this game in just a moment. That's when we return on live post-game show.